We're going to host a media Q&A. If you wish to ask a question, I simply ask you to raise your hand. We have a number of microphones in the audience. For the benefit of our webcast, I will insist that you use a microphone. I also ask that you simply give your name and the media outlet that you represent in posing your question. Do we have any questions? One right here. Microphone number 3, please.
David Mayer from ZDNet UK. What's happening to Series 40? We haven't heard anything about that. And could you explicitly state what's going to happen to the OV portfolio?
Yes, 2 great questions. First of all, as we'll describe in more detail later today, the Nokia strategy actually comprises 3 important pillars. Right now we're talking about the smartphone strategy, which relates to a partnership with Microsoft. The second pillar that we will talk about relates directly to our plans for the low end of the pricing portfolio and the evolution and increased investment we expect to make in Series 40 and successor capabilities in that area to aggressively compete in that space. And I'm sorry, your second question was?
What's happening to the
OV portal, thank you. A critical thing to recognize with the relationship with Microsoft is while we are placing a dependency on Microsoft for Windows Phone, there is a joint dependency on a shared collection of services that define the ecosystem. So the thing that's known as OV Portal today will be a critical contribution to that ecosystem. In particular, you will see Nokia emphasize mapping, location-based services, and various other things related to advertising in a local environment. At the same time that we will avail ourselves of services offered by Microsoft like Bing, like Ad Center for advertising, and a variety of others. So our capabilities and services will be part of this shared environment that represents the ecosystem that we're putting forward.
Thank you. Microphone number 1, please. For the benefit of the others, if you could limit yourself to a single question, please.
Stuart Miles from PocketLint.com. When do you think we're likely to see the first handset from this announcement?
So we are not making a specific announcement as to when that will be. I will say on behalf of Nokia that our belief, and this was an important driver of our decision making, is that we can move faster in the introduction of new devices across the price range faster through this partnership than what we've ever done before.
We do have, the other thing I'd just add is the engineering teams have spent a lot of time together already at this stage, but when there's news, there'll be news.
Yeah. Microphone number 6, please.
Hi there, Ingrid London from moconews.net and paidcontent.org. Just wondering, this is really a question for Steve Ballmer. What happens with the other developers, handset makers already developing on Windows Phone 7? Does this become an exclusive partnership or something that won't be exclusive?
It is not exclusive. There are things that we are doing with Nokia that are unique, and we're very excited about that. And Nokia, I know, has plans to do unique things on top of Windows Phone 7. But it's a non-exclusive, and one of the things which both I think Stephen highlighted and I did is that in some senses the overall development of critical mass in Windows Phone 7 overall from other manufacturers, the chipset community is important to both of us, despite the fact that Nokia obviously wants to sell all of the Windows phones. It can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to reinforce that point, and this is an important thing for people to think about, is that our #1 priority is the success of the Windows Phone ecosystem in which Nokia is participating. So it's to our benefit to get that critical mass and virtuous cycle going, which includes work done by some of our handset competitors, and we will encourage that. That's a good thing. Now, at the same time, we have very clear plans that allow us to differentiate within the Windows Phone ecosystem, very much as a function of our unique relationship with Microsoft and, of course, the strong sources of innovation and engineering that we bring uniquely to Nokia.
Microphone number 5, please.
Thank you. David Murphy from Mobile Marketing Magazine. Question for Stephen Elop. Why Microsoft rather than Android, and how tough a call was that?
Why Microsoft and not Android? Was that the question? Yes.
Yeah, and how tough a decision was that?
So what we assessed essentially is 3 options, and that was part of the process through which we've gone over the last few months. There was clearly the internal option that we considered MeeGo and Symbian and so forth, and both because of our concerns about how rapidly we could expand across the whole pricing continuum with MeeGo, combined with the concerns of whether we could quickly enough develop a third ecosystem without the help of a partner like Microsoft, those 2 things made that option concerning. It was absolutely concerning. We absolutely spent time with our colleagues at Google. We explored the opportunity with the Google ecosystem, and indeed, it's moving very quickly, it's gaining share. There's some attractive elements to it. However, our fundamental belief is that we would have difficulties differentiating within that ecosystem if we tipped over into the Android ecosystem and there was a sense that that was the dominant ecosystem at that point. The commoditization risk was very high. Prices, profits, everything being pushed down, value being moved out to Google essentially, which was concerning to us. So the Microsoft option represented to us the best opportunity to build and lead and fight through a new ecosystem that we take into the marketplace, remarkably complementary assets that in totality is going to offer consumers tremendous choice and a great option in the marketplace.
Microphone number 3, please.
Ben Rooney from the Wall Street Journal. I don't want to intrude on private grief, but no one's talked about the future of MeeGo or indeed Symbian.
Yes.
Is it now the ugly, unloved stepchild?
I'll take that question.
Great.
So, first of all, it's important to listen to me as it relates to a key statement. Windows Phone is our primary smartphone platform. So that's the defining statement. What the implications of that to Symbian are this. We have over 200 million Symbian users out there today. We expect that as we transition through to Windows Phone, we'll ship 150 million or more Symbian devices in the months and indeed years to come. But it's a transition program. We have critical sources of engineering talent, insight, innovation on the Symbian team, and it is Symbian people today, literally today, who are working with Windows Phone technologies to advance those. So you see a transition program going on there. But clearly it's a transition from Symbian to Windows Phone as our primary smartphone strategy. MeeGo, what we will be doing, excuse me, is shipping our first MeeGo device this year, not as the beginning of another smartphone, broad platform strategy, but instead as an opportunity to learn about some of the wonderful innovation we've done with user experience and other things around MeeGo. We'll learn from that first device, and then we'll ask that team to change their focus into an exploration of future platforms, future devices, and future user experiences. So if you like, that becomes something that is in the longer-term planning horizon, and trying to anticipate what the next disruption is in the mobile ecosystem. Well, again, Windows Phone is our primary smartphone platform.
Right. Microphone number 2, please.
Kevin O'Brien with the New York Times Company. Could you discuss the business nature of your alliance? In particular, Microsoft charges license fees for its software. Will Nokia pay Microsoft now to use the Windows system?
Yeah, I'll go first and let Steve comment on it. So first of all, it's important to understand that the relationship is not only about Windows Phone, but also about a range of other elements, including dependencies on mapping, navigation. In one direction, we have dependencies on search and others. So there's quite a bit of value moving through the whole environment. In that context, the agreement does respect the fact that Windows Phone is a royalty-bearing product, but it also respects the unique value that we bring to the ecosystem. So you can imagine different forms of value transfer moving in different directions, particularly with us being excited about new opportunities for revenue generation that come from advertising and other forms of new monetization in addition to our traditional device ecosystem. So we have new sources of monetization that did not exist for us before in any substantive way. Now they do on a global basis. So the deal essentially recognizes the royalty-bearing nature, but also recognizes the unique nature of the relationship and all of the different things that the parties bring to the table.
I think in the mobile space, one of the things that we're both super excited about, and I think most in the industry are, is the ability to activate users and put them in a position to be even more effective doing what we often refer to as local commerce. And Nokia's got not just mapping, but other assets that are really valuable that we will sort of import, if you will, and make part of our services as much as the other way around. And there's a set of financials that go with that as well, as Stephen said.
Good. Microphone number 1, please.
Hi.
There you are.
Hi, I'm Lina from Iltalehti, Finland. My question to you, Stephen, is that I've heard that some operations will be taken down in Finland. Is this true?
So
what happens to Finland in the
yes,
ODs?
so first of all, let me make a really important statement, collectively about our role in and our relationship to the people of Finland and the country of Finland. Nokia is first and foremost and always will be a Finnish company. No ambiguity about that. I get these questions, are you moving it to Hawaii? Are you moving it to Silicon Valley? Whatever. Finland is our home, and it will remain our home. A second point I want to make is that more than anything else, the best thing that Nokia can do for Finland is to ensure its future success. In the 145-year history of this proud company, there's been multiple times where critical decisions and disruptive changes have been necessary, and every time Nokia has come out stronger than before and contributed more to the employment and the economic strength of Finland. And that's precisely what we're doing here again. Now, it is also the case that we have to adjust, lower to be precise, our operating expenditures. That is the case. It turns out we have a range of ways to do that. There are inefficiencies in how we do distributed development around the world that cost us too much money, and we must address those. We make excessive use of expensive outsourcing and various contract mechanisms that must be improved. But all of that being said, there will be substantial reductions in employment in various locations around the world, and that too will affect Finland. No ambiguity about that. We do not today have specific numbers or how or where or when precisely, but we're working very hard to understand that, and of course we'll be doing that through consultations with the employees. Another thing that I'd like to say is we've also already spent time with government leaders and officials within Finland to prepare and work with them to ensure that programs like retraining, local development, new R&D ideas, we're already actively engaged in those conversations to make sure that this is overall something that leads to an increased strength of Nokia in and supportive of Finland. So thank you for asking that question.
Question, microphone number 3, please.
Hi, Dan Robinson from v3.co.uk. Windows Phone 7 is essentially a consumer platform. Could you explain what's going to happen with the E-series Nokia devices? Are we going to see Windows Phone 7 on those?
So let me first, I'll just challenge a little bit the basis of your question. Being someone who was involved in the Office products at Microsoft and obviously a business play and so forth, Windows Phone 7 has the absolute best implementation of business productivity software on the planet. And so the concept of business-oriented technology and devices, much as you see with the E-series phone, those concepts using Windows Phone 7 are already things that we're actively exploring at this point. I don't know if you want to comment on the business aspect.
I would say we designed Windows Phone to be good for all aspects of people's lives, not just the business aspect. And if you look at the early user community, it's quite a mix of people who are employed, work for companies large and small, as well as, quote, consumers. You'll see us continue to add capabilities that are appreciated by systems administrators and IT people, and there's certainly a set of things on our roadmap that we can go do around that. But from a basic functionality perspective, I think, as Stephen said, we're really kind of number one in capabilities for somebody who wants to be productive at work.